because we left a pretty secure position in 2016 to kind of burn the ships, if you will, and go up and try something new. I don't think we would have predicted Club Pilates to be where it is today. Our initial studio opened in March of 2017, and that studio was our North Raleigh studio.
Jon Smith is one of the largest Club Pilates franchisees in the country. He got into the brand early when they had just 50 locations open, but today, Club Pilates has over 1,000 studios in the United States, and Jon has gone from one studio to dozens.
So we opened our 6th studio in Raleigh in November of 2019. And typically back then, within the first 2 months, you were cash flow positive in the business. And then obviously COVID in North Carolina was difficult. We were closed about 7 months. And so, coming out of that, when people started flooding back to fitness, Pilates, was one of the things they started flooding back to in a significant way.
In this episode, we'll dive into Jon's full journey, the economics of a Club Pilates studio, and why he recently decided to take a private equity investment.
For me personally, you have all these personal guarantees, leases. I was 51 years old. We were definitely looking more for a partner, and most of the firms that we were looking at were interested in a majority deal. So we opened our 48th last weekend, another studio in Winston. So yeah, it's been exciting.
Would you say since the investment, is there a change in your daily stress levels, the amount of hours you're working per week and things like that? Hey guys, before getting to the episode, if you're considering buying a franchise, head to our website and book a free strategy session with one of our advisors, who are multi-unit and multi-brand franchise owners. There's about 3,000 active franchises in the United States today, and picking the right brand is one of the most important decisions you'll make. So reach out via our website and get guidance from someone who's already done it. The link is in the description as well. Enjoy the episode. You grew up in a family business. You didn't grow up in fitness. Can you share more about what that taught you before you got into Club Pilates?
Yeah, so I grew up working alongside my uncle and my father in basically a family sales business. We owned equity territory for Balfour, which was a provider of graduation products. So more than anything, that taught me work ethic, the importance of relationship building, and ultimately just how you differentiate yourself in the market more than anything. And that's how you treat your customers, how you treat your employees, and the level of servant leadership that is needed to be successful.
And were you working in the family business prior to getting into Club Pilates in 2016?
Yes, I had been working in that business for 20 years. Basically bought my dad out of the business over a 10-year period that ended in 2015, and had really been looking to try to find something new. My wife was really kind of pushing me along to do something else. And so that's when we really started focusing on franchising. I didn't have any new ideas or, didn't know how to start my own company, but the idea of following a playbook or finding a franchise was enticing, but just, at that point in time, didn't know how to go about that process.
And so were you exiting the business as part of that, or did you want to hire a CEO to take over the family business?
No, it was my brother and I were partners in the business, and I just made the decision to leave and start, Club Pilates. So, it was 2016. We were looking at different concepts. A couple of partners and I, Joe Ruggieri, another partner that, had some experience in the franchising world. We were talking to a broker and kind of looking at different concepts. And, we all flew out to California, took the intro class at Club Pilates, really liked the basics of the model, recurring revenue. We liked how, Pilates at that time was kind of you had to buy it. most Pilates studios were teaching, to 3 or 4 people, kind of difficult to get into those classes, kind of unapproachable, So this, Club Pilates has made it a lot easier and approachable for me personally. When I went, I had a good experience. Former athlete, I saw the benefits of the class, liked how I felt. It was challenging, but also I had success. So That's really what kind of led us to kind of feel comfortable about the business and the business model.
Did you have any reservations as an entrepreneur, given that you were used to working with your brother, you guys called all the shots, and now you were potentially stepping into a franchise where you were going to have to play inside their lines to some extent?
Yeah, yes. I think there was reservations, but to a degree, having the support available, with not having to go out and find your own CRM, go out and find your own marketing. A lot of that was just packaged and ready to roll. And so that to me was a big a big thing that was just going to make it easier for me just to concentrate on running the business instead of having to do all the other ancillary things when you start up a new business.
So I did some digging, and Club Pilates heading into 2016, they had just gotten acquired by Exponential Fitness the year prior. They had around 44 locations going into 2016, and their average revenue per store was like $350K. So as best as you can remember, what were you really seeing back then that made you and your partners want to go into this franchise? Given the success since that point has been phenomenal, but it's hard to predict that at the early stage.
Yeah, I don't think we would have predicted Club Pilates to be where it is today. I mean, I think we were very comfortable with the unit economics at that point in time to get comfortable enough to, buy an initial 6 development rights in the Raleigh market. But we like I said, it was disrupting Pilates by bringing, teaching 12 people at the same time, reformer Pilates, and this whole idea of a membership model was very new to honestly the boutique fitness industry. Other than Orange Theory Fitness, nobody really had done it and done it well at that point in time. So we felt like this was early, but also the people that we had talked to, franchisees that had opened, were having success. So we felt pretty confident that it was going to work.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think just to see how the benchmarks have changed over the last decade, right? Because we're on a decade here since you opened, and I think 350,000 AUV in 2026 isn't going to be making much money in most businesses.
No.
But what was the landscape like back then that you were actually seeing obviously some level of profitability off what today is a very low average unit volume?
Yeah, I think, our initial studio opened in March of 2017. We signed a lease, opened our first studio, and that studio was our North Raleigh studio. And I remember opening weekend, we had a soft open weekend, which, Club Pilates had a very set path to open your studio with a soft opening, then grand opening. And that has not changed over the last 10 years, other than the benchmarks going up. But, we had the intro class, the sales process, and, we set a record at that point in time for soft opening for the amount of members that we had. And, just the level of, the different demographics that were walking in the door. I remember we had a woman named Barbara that was, in her 80s, and she came in and, did a workout in a cardigan sweater and joined. And I looked at my partner, Joe Ruggieri, and said, I think this is going to work. Because it was, we were having 30-year-olds walk in the door. We were having 80-year-olds walk in the door, and everybody was having a good experience in joining. So, but, pre-COVID, the benchmarks were definitely different. And then coming out of COVID, you saw a lot of more interest in restorative fitness, wellness in general, and the community aspect of our business is really what makes us different. People are building friendships, they're building community, and they're not only just there for the Pilates class, they're there for the community.
Today, Pilates is very well known as a form of an exercise. But back then, right, you said you have an 80-year-old in a cardigan working out, you have 30-year-olds. Were they coming to your store at that soft opening knowing what they were doing? Or was it like, ooh, let me try out this new workout that I've never heard of?
Yeah, so the majority, I would say probably 80% of the customers or members that, the prospects that walked in the door that weekend had never done a Pilates class before. And so, there's just a huge opportunity to introduce Pilates in a way that was, more approachable and, allow people to have success with the workout. Because it is intimidating. You walk into the Pilates studio and you have these reformers, and, there is an intimidation factor. So it was very important for us to make people feel comfortable, introduce the equipment, introduce the workout in a way that was going to lead to a successful workout and less intimidation, if you will.
Today, it seems really common for boutique fitness franchises and businesses in general to run, let's call it like pre-marketing, right before you're opening. You're trying to drive like your first memberships, and usually there's some special offer to be a founding member. I've had folks come on and say they're able to drive enough memberships before they even open where they can operate profitably from day one of actually opening. So back then, were you guys already running that kind of playbook?
Yeah, we were. And typically, back then you were, within the first 2 months, you were cash flow positive in the business. So it was pre-sale, founding memberships, and then your soft opening weekend, and then your grand opening weekend, the 45 days later. So you had this process of basically, pre-sale could start 6 months before you open the studio.
Yeah, I mean, this is the dream for franchise owners, right? Like you want that product market fit, if you will, and you want to see that success to know that it's resonating. So given that you guys really got off to a hot start, were you racing to get unit number 2 open, or was there any operational challenges that you faced with your first location?
No, we pretty much, we were looking, you obviously have real estate. You can only go as fast as your next real estate find. So we signed a lease pretty quickly after opening that first one, and we opened the next one September of that same year, and then a third one the March of the next year. So we had to kind of start charting our course to get real estate, find it, and get studios open. But Raleigh was a great market because there was a lot of new development. We did, early on, we kind of had to educate the real estate and the developers on who we were, what we were doing. And now, that's a different story. But early on, we did have to kind of tell our story, give our business case to these developers and get them comfortable with our concept. So that is one of the disadvantages of being kind of an emerging brand in the brick and mortar space, is you sometimes do have to educate the market.
I've spoken with a lot of Orange Theory franchisees over the years, and the early ones said that they used to just try to co-locate near like a Whole Foods. That was one of their go-to grocery stores because they figured Whole Foods customers also want to work out at Orange Theory. Like there's a good overlap. Did you guys have any kind of company that you went after similarly?
Yeah, absolutely. We were looking at same grocery anchored. We were looking at other boutique fitness. If it was around, we felt more comfortable and confident that we could be successful in that same market. Parking was very important, making sure our members could easily access. But, when you're talking, majority of our customers are women, and you want to be part of their everyday routines. So having that, grocery anchor spot is important early on. Now that our brand has grown and brand awareness has improved, we don't have to be in the A+ center. We could be in the B strip center next to the A+ center and still have success.
Yeah. Can you talk about what the split operationally was between you and your partners? Were you focused on hiring and someone else was, focused on marketing, or did you guys have a clear division of labor?
Yeah, it was early on, it was a little bit of all hands on deck. So early on, it was, we kind of would separate the studios out, and the partner that would, we had basically 2 operators in the partnership, and one would take the first studio, I would take the next, and we would just split it up that way and lead the charge. So ultimately, having two operators probably is not the best for any partnership. Joe is more on the real estate side of things, looking for new space, looking for new developments. That's kind of the way we split it up at the time.
Do you recommend folks to have at least one partner, though? Like, do you think if you did this on your own, would you have drastically been slowed down in your unit development?
I think so. I mean, for me, a partnership can be a very powerful tool, especially if you're talking about emerging brands that have a lot of risk at that point in time. Going in with additional partners was for me, gave me a little bit more confidence to if it didn't go right, then we're left holding the bag ourselves. So
yeah. All right. Well, back to your development. You obviously got off to a hot start. You were at 3 locations pretty quickly. How soon was it that you got the full 6 locations built and opened, which was your initial?
So we opened our 6th studio in Raleigh in November of 2019. So we got the full 6 open right before 2020.
Okay. And at that point, generally, do you have a decent amount of debt on the business? Like, were you using SBA financing to get these open?
Yeah, we're using SBA, cash from the business, but mainly SBA loans.
Okay. And as far as that process, were you guys fairly comfortable taking that, whatever amount of debt it was, or given the success of the stores?
Yeah, we were. I mean, we were getting, the great thing about the Raleigh market and the new development, we were getting a lot of TI from developers. So that definitely helped us not have to take out as much. So
Sure.
It was mainly just, equipment and, part of the build out for the SBA loans. So it wasn't over. That was a great thing about Club Pilates, is the build outs were not overly burdensome on your debt. So you could get them open at that point in time, $350,000 to $400,000.
Yeah, I mean, even today, I looked at the most recent FTD. It's between like 300 and 900K. I'm lengthening it around.
So pretty large, delta, because real estate's kind of different all over the place. But
of course.
We try to be under 500.
Yeah, I mean, well, can you just walk us through, like, what are the main, you're basically clearing out an open room and getting reformer machines in there, right? But, like, other than that, you have a front desk and probably not too much else?
You have 12 reformers. You have the equipment And then you have, new walls, new flooring, new bathrooms. It's very simple, and you can get them built out, within 8 weeks.
Wow. Okay. Is there a reason there's only 12 reformers? Because I'm just thinking to like Orange Theory classes and other boutique fitness classes I've taken where sometimes it's, one instructor with 30 other people in there.
Yeah. So Pilates is a little bit unique in the fact that our instructors will modify individuals throughout the workout. So more than 12 can possibly be tough, because if you're doing it correctly and you're modifying each person in the room's workout, then the member experience probably goes down if you get more than 12 in that class, in our view.
Okay.
Because it's a very personalized approach with our instructors. Our instructors, have 450 hours of certification. They're taught how to modify each class, accordingly to, and sometimes people come in with injuries that they're not, they tell us they can't move their shoulder this way or this way, and we modify the workout to make sure that they don't re-injure themselves.
Okay. Well, maybe that's a good time to talk about kind of inside the four walls, what your typical Club Pilates looks like. How many folks do you have? How many instructors does a typical location demand?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, for a full schedule, you're probably needing, 6 to 8 full-time instructors that can teach 15 to 20 classes a week. And then you have, front desk staff, a GM. You have a GM that runs the front desk, the sales process, and then you have 3 to 4 sales staff to start to be successful.
Yeah. And do you see the instructors as that main differentiation? Because I'm just thinking about, pretty much every brick and mortar business, labor is one of the key constraints, but it's also where you can win and differentiate on. So,
yeah, I think that's a great point. A lot of people see it as a limiting factor in our growth. We see it as an advantage because our instructors do have to have 450 hours to be fully certified, which is different than some of these other Pilates by name, concepts. Club Pilates has a very strict protocol where instructors go through our teacher training program, become certified. And the beauty of that is, each workout can be very unique to each individual instructor. So you might have a teacher teaching a Reformer Flow 1 class one day and another instructor teaching the same Reformer Flow 1 class, but it's completely different and unique to that instructor. So as a member, you're never getting the same workout.
Yeah.
So it can be very positive. So we've stayed in front of it, by building up our own team, bench, if you will, with teacher training. We have accelerated trainings that we can get people that have fitness backgrounds in through a little bit faster than the traditional takes. Sometimes it can take 6 to 8 months to get fully certified.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, it's not an easy process, which is good because if you're going to a Club Pilates, then you know that your instructors likely have to put in a lot of work to even be in that position. But I think you bring up an interesting point, which is like, every business isn't what it looks like from the customer perspective, meaning someone, newer to thinking about business ownership might look at Club Pilates and they're like, oh, it's great. Like I love taking their classes. I want to be in the fitness business. But what you just described to me is I'm sure you went through many seasons of intense hiring and recruiting of instructors, right? In your day-to-day maybe, or someone in your organization's day-to-day was a lot of focus on just interviewing and qualifying. And at the end of the day, you're in the recruiting business at that point. So would you say that that's accurate, and that for you guys to get to the scale you have today, that you really had to dedicate a lot of time to being the destination for the next up-and-coming great fitness instructor?
Yeah, and it's something you never stop doing. It's constant. So we have a dedicated team that's consistently reaching out, getting people signed up for teacher training. We're constantly pouring resources into evaluating and giving our instructors the ability to grow, continue to improve, and continue to feel like they're progressing with their own instruction. And so we spend a lot of time and resources and money on our staff and on our people and development.
And within the four walls, I know today I think there's about the AUV is about $970K. With whatever you're willing to share, like what to you is like an adequately run Pilates studio? Like, are instructors making up? I mean, I frankly, I don't even know what percentage of that revenue they would make up. But then, generally speaking, how much can someone in Club Pilates expect to bring home after? Because you really have labor, you probably have marketing. Obviously, your rent is fixed, but it's very different than, say, a food franchise where you have cost of goods that could fluctuate, especially in the fast food world. Chicken and beef prices have been going up and down like crazy. This seems like a more stable, predictable model.
Yeah, it's fairly predictable once you get, we like rent to be a certain percentage. For us, we like to be definitely under 10%, more so, hopefully around 8%. And then you're looking at labor sometimes between 35, 40%. And then, 4-wall EBITDA, that's kind of what we measure our success at. We'd like to be around a 30% range.
And we're talking after the royalty that you pay to the franchisor.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's phenomenal. Especially, you just think about, I think it's like an 8% royalty being paid, so, at least in the recent FTD. So it's just great economics. Do you think there's a reason that people haven't caught on to this category? Because I have looked at and talked to more than enough franchises to know that is not the norm, 30% EBITDA.
Yeah, I think there's more and more people trying to get into it, honestly. You're seeing a lot of new concepts popping up, not only in boutique, but you see, the big box gyms starting to put Pilates studios in there. And there's, you have Crunch Fitness just introduced Pilates. So there's definitely a mad rush to introduce Pilates to the market in new ways.
Do you see like a crunch as, back to what we were talking about, recruiting, like that's kind of the battleground, is who can get the instructor most likely. So have you had scenarios where an instructor is like, I got an offer from this other gym, they're going to pay me a lot more? Like, do those conversations happen? Is that what the day-to-day can look like?
From time to time they do. I think, really what we're building communities. So our instructors are building relationships with their members in our studios, and they're seeing those members progress. And there is that relationship aspect. And, we want to be the best place for an instructor to work, not only pay-wise, but also just culture-wise, with us helping develop their it's an artwork. It's an art form, really. Pilates, the way you teach, is really, it's an art. It's not an exact science. So, we feel like we do a pretty good job of developing and retaining quality instructors.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, before Club Pilates, a lot of these instructors were teaching at 4 or 5 different Pilates studios, because they would teach one class here, one class over here. And so we've given the ability for somebody to really work, teach 4 or 5 classes at once, and they can really build up a pretty good schedule and make a significant amount of money at one studio.
Yeah, it's probably a much more stable spot for them to be in. Well, back to your journey growing your own portfolio here. So we've gotten up to 2019, pre-COVID still, got 6 studios. Did you guys already have another territory purchased by that point, or did you build out the full 6 and then go back to the franchisor and say, hey, we want to keep this going?
Yeah, so we had a full 6 open, and then obviously COVID in North Carolina was difficult. We were closed about 7 months. And so, coming out of that, I think there was a little bit of a land grab, because, people in 21, when people started flooding back to fitness, Pilates, was one of the things they started flooding back to in a significant way. I don't think any of us expected it to be so robust, the demand for restorative fitness and, the wellness aspect of it. And what was missing for a lot of people was they'd been working at home on their treadmills or their bicycles at home by themselves, and they were looking for community. And so that's really what we're doing, is we were providing the ability to work out with friends, community, start building, those relationships again. And that's really, I think, what helped us coming out of COVID. But yeah, we went back to the franchisor and said, hey, listen, can we develop, we started looking at the Raleigh market. And where early on we thought there were only 6 that could be developed, we started seeing, okay, well, we could put one here, we could put one here. The demand was so high. We were looking at 12-minute drive times. We had very full classes. Your capacity, you had high utilization, so your capacity, we were running up to the issues with our members' capacity of adding new members with member experience. And so we just started an infill strategy really in Raleigh, is adding additional studios to help not only grow, but the member experience is important as well. Make sure people can get into classes when they sign up for an 8-pack, they can get into 8 classes a month.
Did you guys model this out to any extent? Like, were you worried that you would somewhat cannibalize the business? Maybe you'd have then vacancies.
Corporate definitely had a cannibalization model that we used, but we started seeing that the actual cannibalization wasn't what we thought it was going to be. It was less. So bottom line is, like I said earlier, people work out with their friends. And so they're not going to leave one studio and go to a new one. The great thing about our unlimited membership within our, Raleigh market and our entire platform right now, they can work out in any one of our studios across all of our 48 that are open currently. So that, to us, it's a win.
Okay, interesting. Meaning just like there's a tier where you can pay maybe a little bit more money and you get access to 48 studios versus.
That's right. Yeah, it just opens up reformers across the entire platform. So you have people that travel. Right now we're in 3 different states: Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina.
Yeah,
with 48 open.
So as we know, and as Jon just said, today they have 48 studios. But to this point in the conversation, we're up to 2021 when they only had 6 open, which means Jon and his partner took 5 years to open their first 6 locations. But in the next 4 years, they'd open another 18. So by June 2025, they had a total of 24 locations, which is when the PE investment occurred. Now, in the 8 months since that, they've doubled from 24 to 48 studios. But before getting to that, I wanted to key in on what changed for Jon operationally between locations 6 and 24 when he started growing far faster and achieved enough scale to get interest from private equity.
Yeah, I mean, so building out the team, I think the first thing it breaks is your ego. When you're growing up fast, because you're not as important as you think you are, but you hire really, really good people, and we were fortunate enough to hire really, really strong leaders and strong managers. And a very strong instructor team that helped us grow. And so our first acquisition was in Georgia, coming out. That was in September of 21. It allowed us to grow into Georgia. So we, hired a really strong GM. We had a regional manager at the time that managed our general managers, and then we continued to add support at the studio level. Field level support was number one for us, making sure GMs had the support they needed through a regional manager and then a VP of ops. But for me personally, it was, realizing that these folks are probably going to do better than I could in running these studios.
Yeah.
I know for a fact they are. They're much better general managers than I would be.
When you're finding these people, do they have experience in fitness, or are you kind of bringing them in and having to coach them because they had some different background that wasn't boutique fitness related?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, some of them definitely have fitness backgrounds themselves. The biggest thing for us is we want folks that, are passionate about how Pilates can change people's lives and they can sell it. Not necessarily managers but somebody that really is, we've started really focusing on hiring people that had a sales muscle, if you will, that are motivated by numbers, motivated by hitting a goal, but also really intentional about member experience and making sure members and customer service. We've had people come in from fitness and outside fitness and have success.
Well, how did you keep on the same financing path of SBA loans? Because again, just stacking that many more units and opening that many more locations in a relatively short amount of time. Did you have to bring in someone financial related to almost just?
We were fortunate to bring on a capital partner in 2020 that had a relationship with a bank, allowed us to grow. That was 2021. Sorry, 2021 with a local bank that basically said, "Oh yeah, we'll lend you some money," and then that kind of dried up. And then we had to go find another bank that would lend us some more money. And at that point in time was, we got to 24 studios and it was getting harder and harder to go conventional route of getting more debt. So that's, partly the reason why we started thinking about private equity.
So these were conventional loans in 2021 that you were taking?
Yes.
Okay. Do you mind just at a high level explaining the difference of what you were getting from your local bank versus the SBA route? Because I think the local bank relationships they can develop are not, I haven't covered it as much as I'd like, but I think it can be a super powerful way to grow.
Yeah. So, we were getting financing through a local bank that, the conventional loan was, different than a little bit more affordable than SBA as far as the rates that you're getting, but you kind of had a cap. So you could, you could only take out as much. It was kind of a facility, if you will, that we would be allowed to take out up to this amount to help with new store development. And then any acquisitions we were going to do, we had to kind of separate those out and get them, they would have to underwrite that deal by itself. So we did a couple of those in Georgia and South Carolina that we did with a bank that underwrote those.
Yeah. Well, as you're doing this, building out your own portfolio, Club Pilates as a brand is exploding. Today they have well north of 1,000 locations open in the United States. You guys, though, are very specifically building in your local market and just expanding kind of outwards from there. But did you feel like maybe, a lot of times in systems when they're growing that fast, franchisees will start acquiring others and they have no problem going well out of state, multiple states where they have to even where their a plane flight away. Did you feel that was an avenue you guys should consider, or was there just so much opportunity to build, within the driving range that you guys were in locally that you just kept on that path?
Yeah, so the most important thing to us is density. So we do love that our market is contiguous at this point with our 3 states. It gives us the ability to manage, and you get more economies of scale with your management team. You can definitely develop culture and do that well. But we're not against going out to different states if we can buy and then infill with density. So that's really what our strategy is, where we can go and add new studios.
Yeah.
But to a degree, we want to be able to manage it and do it well. That's the most important thing for us, is to make sure that we can keep the membering experience at the standard that we're wanting to keep it, as well as the people and the instructors, and being able to manage that and do it well.
Okay. And even throughout this time, again, because yes, the brand's exploding, but it's a bit unique in the fact that Exponential Fitness owned Club Pilates, and throughout your journey, they've had their own kind of story develop where they went public, acquired a bunch of brands. Was there any ever points where you felt turbulence due to anything at the franchisor level?
I mean, I always think it's always kind of tough. I think it's kind of tough for a franchisor to be public, personally, yes, because you're always going to have negativity from your stockholders, as well as negativity in actually your franchisees. To me, it was kind of tough because we had a very successful business. Club Pilates always, to me, had great leadership. So the other stuff is kind of just noise to me personally. I tried not to really focus on it too much because we had such a great product and great leadership at Pilates that the other brands were there, but they were real, I did not pay too much attention to it. But it did, it definitely created some, rat poison, if you will, in the market, for people that want to get into the system.
Sure. Well, zooming out a little bit, I know you for the most part are just have been laser focused on Pilates, but I'd imagine you've at least over the years had some conversations with other fitness franchisees that maybe were part of the Exponential platform. Do you have any thesis around what makes a really solid, just any core tenets of what makes a great boutique fitness concept? Because, we've mentioned Orange Theory a few times, and they really did do a good job of popularizing boutique fitness. It's obviously, that's a generalized HIIT workout, whereas Pilates is even more niche, I'd say, with how specific the workout you're getting there is. But, I've looked at brands over the years that were part of Exponential Fitness, from, Row House at one time was part of them, and they're not anymore. And then Stride. So Row House, just a rowing specific workout, Stride, treadmill only specific workout, but still that boutique fitness angle to it where it's an instructor kind of pumping you up. There's probably loud music in those workouts going on. But you've just seen different concepts, try different things. And I think I love it because it's innovative and it's cool to see these new concepts come to market, but success of Club Pilates is so outsized relative to 99.9% of the concepts that have been out there. So yeah, I'm curious if you just have any ideas on what really makes a concept stick and work economically for the franchisees.
I mean, it's a great question. I think, grateful, honestly, to be a part of Club Pilates, because I have seen other boutique fitness not do as well. To me, it's for Club Pilates, I can only speak to that, but the playbook they had, people talk about this all the time, but the fact that you could get a lead, you could sell the membership before we open the doors. You provide a tremendous opportunity to do Pilates with an expertise instructor, and it was just very fine-tuned. It really hasn't changed, the model as far as our playbook over the last 10 years. Just this really, we introduced a new class, the circuit class, just rolled out this year. That was the first new class we've brought to the market in, I think, 7 years. So, but I think Orange Theory, had that technology aspect, the splat, which was the key. It was kind of sticky. For us, it's, the stickiness to our concept is the relationships, the community that we're building, and the expertise of instruction really is what's unique. And the reformer, it's, you can't really It's hard to do a Pilates reformer workout by yourself at your house.
Okay.
Without the expertise of an instructor and modifying your workout as you go through it.
Yeah, and even within this world of Pilates, there's what's it called, the Megaformer, which I believe Solid Core popularized. Do you see that as a whole different workout and a whole different class, or is that competitive with what you guys are doing?
I do see it as a different workout. The Megaformer, the Legree workout is unique to itself. It's not traditional Pilates. It's probably a little harder workout, more physical than your Club Pilates. But the great thing about our workouts is our instructors can ramp it up or ramp it down depending on what your level is and what you're capable of. So that's unique to us, where our instructors bring the level of instruction that can modify each workout. So it's you see Orange Theory Fitness, the Solid Cores, I would classify those, they called them even coaches, right? So everybody in the United States would get pretty much a similar workout. If you're going to Orange Theory, or I don't know much about Solid Core, but probably very similar workouts at those sites as well. Whereas I told you before, our instructors bring their own flows, bring their own instruction to each class. So it's unique to us and kind of differentiates us from some of those other players.
Yeah. No, I mean, it definitely is interesting kind of freedom that the instructors have. Obviously, it's working, though. Well, talk to me about, there was a big decision you made recently, right, to take on private equity capital. What was going through your head that you felt, at this point, I believe you had 24 units. Why was now, or I guess June of last year, the right time to take some chips off the table, but also accelerate growth?
Yeah, so I think we started, realizing that we needed help, not just capital, but also operationally, the support that can come from private equity. And that's what we really were focused on, and picking the right private equity, because there's a lot out there. So for us, it was about picking a partner that not only could bring capital, but also bring expertise and knowledge and how to scale. Because the last thing we wanted to do was bring private equity in and everybody realize, oh, they must be owned by private equity, because you walk in the studio and things are broken or the staff's not there. So we wanted, we were very intentional about finding a partner. But, as you grow, you're at 24 studios, for me personally, you have all these personal guarantees on leases. I was 51 years old. I read a book by, Adam Coffey. He has this rule of 130. If you take your equity that's tied up into your business and you add 50 to it, if it's over 130, it's probably time to diversify. And so for me, I was way over that number. So it sounds simple, but I learned a lot. I read a lot of books around private equity. I would classify them as like private equity for dummies. But I definitely learned a lot. And I went through the process. We hired the right banker that had done fitness deals, kind of knew the market already and who our potential, partner could be. And so that, I think that sped it up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, can you share more about that 130? What are you specifically referring to with that?
So the rule of 130, it's basically you take the equity that's tied up in your business of your net worth, and then you add 50 to it, add your age to it. Well, I was 51. And if it's over 130, then it's possibly time to diversify.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So it's more just like, if you're overly concentrated, the risk that you could be exposed.
Yeah. And there's, but for me, I was very obviously all in this business. So.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mean, I think the concentration obviously is a big reason why you achieve success and kind of limit your upside if you diversify too much. But point taken, at a certain point, it's just very risky. As far as the structure of the deal, again, whatever you're willing to share, did you guys give up majority ownership? Was there an avenue to minority ownership at all?
Yeah. I mean, we were definitely looking more for a partner, and most of the firms that we were looking at were interested in a majority deal. There were some other consolidators out there that did debt deals. We were okay with selling a majority of our business, and we did with the right partner, and that was the key aspect. And we partnered with the Eagle Merchant Partners. They had built a relationship with us over the year-long process. We had been introduced to them early on, and they built a relationship with us, but they you're seeing more and more private equity firms do this, but they have operating partners on their team that have run businesses before. And I kind of call them the CEO whisperers. So you're seeing more private equity do this type of arrangement where they have somebody on their team that has experience operating and can help not just provide capital, but also provide strategic advice and support on how-tos, because they know what we're dealing with on a daily basis. So, and Eagle did have that on their team.
Are you able to share like the background of that operating partner and how they tangibly work with you? Because I think it would be helpful for the audience to see, like, crystal clear how a PE firm can actually impact positively your business.
Yeah, I mean, this particular one has built a multi-unit brick and mortar concept himself in the education market. So he knows the ins and outs of, lease negotiations, building out your team, building out structure, building out your support team in the corporate office to handle the scale, and keeping culture as the number one component of that as you build your team, making sure the culture you want is intact. So I have weekly calls with him, and he's asking me questions, and I'm asking him questions about how-tos, what I'm dealing with, et cetera, what I worry about, what's keeping me up at night. So it's that type of relationship. It's just not, capital.
Yeah. So is this like you have a standing Zoom call once a week, or is it you're on the phone with him 5-6 hours a week?
It's a standing call once a week.
Sure.
On Zoom call.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean we have weekly calls with everybody on our deal team. So that's separate from that call. So it's constant. It's a strong cadence of watching data, looking at your metrics, KPIs, and adjusting as you see fit. So you're making, I think the biggest change for me personally was I was so used to looking in the past. We'd get our financials a month, pretty much the 10th or the 10th or 15th the month after we finish the month. And so you're looking in the past and you're saying, okay, what went wrong? And the next month's almost halfway over. So now we're getting more of a cadence around looking at KPIs and metrics on a weekly basis so you can adjust. So that's new and different, and also helps us run our business better.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also just such an important point to realize that, the franchisor is going to give you, and even the best, right? And Club Pilates as a franchise concept is up there with one of the best. Definitely in the last, 2 decades, they've had top 1% success. So, but they're going to give you the playbook for the 4-wall concept. But as a franchisee gets bigger, knowing the quote unquote playbook to run a large multi-unit organization, you can't necessarily get that from, and you're probably not going to get that from your franchisor. So I think it's really cool that through this PE firm, you've gotten that from their operating partner to kind of dial in what you need to do to your organization. Do you want to share more about your diligence process? Because it is such a crucial decision who you partner with in something like this. And you can't unwind it. You're probably not making this kind of decision more than once or twice in your life if you're lucky, right? So was there anything specific? Like, did the other private equity firms that were interested, did they not have operating partners, or like what was the key differentiator? Yeah,
I mean, the great thing about Eagle at the time was they'd been in both. They've been a franchisor, they are a franchisor, and they're actually in the franchisee spot. So they've seen it from both sides. So for me, that was very important because I wanted a partner that could work well with Exponential Fitness and build that relationship. And then also somebody that had done it and, seen it from our shoes, a franchisee level. So that was important to us. And then, I talked to other owners that had done deals with them to basically do my own diligence and see, hey, are these folks really what they say they are? Do they do this? How were they when, the business might not be successful as you want it to be? How do they react? How do they support you? And so definitely had a lot of conversations with owners that had been in their portcos and people that had exited and had success with them.
Yeah, interesting.
Very similar to what you would do in the diligence of a franchise.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities there, right? You're evaluating concept for a franchise. You're going to speak to the existing franchise owners to make sure that they're happy before you sign a deal with the franchisor. So, all right, that's really good insight. And well, let's catch up as much as we can on. It hasn't even been 12 months since you partnered with them, but you've gone from 25-ish units to 47 in 9 months.
Yeah, so we opened our 48th last weekend at another studio in Winston. So yeah, it's been exciting. We've been able to do some acquisitions. We've been able to acquire some existing owners, and we're trying to do new. I think we have 8 new studios in development for 2026. But, it was I think you just at the right time. For some of these owners, they had been in it for 10 years or 8 years, and we're looking to potentially get out. So we offered up another option that was, there'd only really been 2 consolidators in Club Pilates at the time. And so we thought, it could be, if there's another option, it'd be good for our owners and the more competition. I think it's good for the franchisor as well to have more than just a couple consolidators in the system.
Yeah, well, I think that's an interesting point too, because that is the trend within brands that get to a certain unit size and have been around for long enough. You usually just develop that crop of owners who are looking to get out because they've been in it for a while, as you said. And at the beginning of the year, the first episode released for Empires was these 2 guys who have been consolidating within Meineke, so a much different industry, but they seem to be the first to really do that. Now, I'm sure a few others will probably pop up over the next couple of years. Within Club Pilates, though, and even with Eagle Merchant evaluating this partnership, did you guys have any quantitative way to know that there actually was room for another consolidator? Because to some extent, it's a competitive business, right? If you're in the business of acquiring other franchisees, where, if you have these other existing consolidators who are much larger than you at the time, feasibly they can just pay more to acquire all the stores. And if I'm a seller, I'm going to go to the one who's paying me a better multiple, most likely. How did you view yourself as being able to compete and still be able to roll up stores at an accelerated pace?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was existing relationships in the market, in the industry, CP, and so I knew the pipeline for us was fairly robust coming in with the M&A opportunity that existed. We like to think we're a friendly acquirer, so we're going to hopefully give you a good multiple valuation, but also potentially give you an opportunity to roll in with us. So that's unique to us. It's it builds momentum, builds alignment, and we've seen success. Not everybody, but if you look at Club Pilates, I think 90% of the owners own less than 6, so it's extremely fragmented. So that's partly why Eagle was PE was attracted to it, because you had so much opportunity to roll up individual owners. There's just a lot of owners.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's kind of what they if you only have 3 and then you have huge operators, it's a little bit harder to roll up.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more fragmented the system is, the better the opportunity is for a roll up. So how many separate acquisitions made up that jump in store count from 25?
So when we closed, we acquired 2 additional owners in that June, and then we've done 4 additional acquisitions, 4 different owners since. So total 6 different owners over the last 6 months.
Okay.
And some of them owned 7, some of them owned 1. So it's just different for each one.
Can you talk about how these acquisitions happen, right? Is there someone at Eagle Merchant who just says, hey, Jon, we got an owner, we're going to get a deal done, that we'll funnel them into your day-to-day overview or oversight? Or are you the one, is that kind of your job, as your role within the system?
Yeah, it's really my role to develop those relationships and reach out. And then, Expo has introduced a new resale team, which they had gone away from. Now they've reintroduced it. So if owners want to sell, they can go directly through Expo, and Expo will roll the deal out to everybody. So that's 2 different ways that we're getting the deals, through direct outreach by myself or coming through Expo.
Yeah.
Resale.
And broadly, has your role changed quite a bit since the investment? Where is that the primary thing you're doing on a weekly basis, is this relationship development?
Yeah, basically it's changed quite significantly. So I brought on a CFO, an entire accounting function that basically took that off my plate so I could focus on, really it's about value creation. So my job is to create value. That's really it. And that's through M&A. It's through same-store sales growth. It's through de novo, new store development. And so that's really my focus on a daily basis is those three things: growing our team, culture, and then M&A, new store development.
Would you say, since the investment, is there a change in your daily stress levels, the amount of hours you're working per week, and things like that?
I would say I'm much more free to do what I'm supposed to be doing, because you can concentrate on what you're good at. And kind of, I wasn't very good at the financials part of it, honestly. I mean, we had a CPA and a bookkeeper that helped us make sure our books were in order. But now that we have a CFO to really lead that function, has freed me up to really focus on what I like doing. And that's building culture. It's, building team, developing people, and then, looking for these new opportunities to grow.
Yeah. Do you guys have a goal as far as how many locations you think you can get to? And is there a certain timeline here that you're aiming?
I think everybody knows that private equity is not, in it for the long haul. I mean, they typically want to see return to their investors within 3 to 5 years. And so that's what we're shooting for as far as, what we like to do. I think we've circled, we'd like to be at about 100 studios in about 3 years. So that's kind of the goal. But it's, for us, it's not necessarily always about a number. It's also about doing it the right way, creating great member experiences, opportunities for employees. And, that growth will come, that number will happen if you concentrate on the right things.
Can you share more too about just the positive impact that private equity has had on your specific portfolio? And I'm asking this from the perspective of, I think it's a pet peeve of mine now where, a lot of your average person just hears the word private equity and they think, like they're evil. It's going to destroy the business for the customer at the end of the day. Like the customer's going to lose because private equity is involved. And when you really, though, peel back the onion here, the word private equity is so general, right? Like Eagle Merchant is vastly different than the mega cap PE firms like a Blackstone, who have trillions of dollars under management. And it's just a totally different equation that they're looking to execute as far as to generate a return on investment. And yeah, I would love to just hear, because it clearly, you said it earlier that you needed help. And generally, when a business owner needs help, there's probably things that they could be doing better to run the organization better, which is usually a positive for employees. Ultimately, the bigger a company is, there's more pathways for development for employees, and you're reaching more customers. So yeah, I'd love to hear anything you can share that just shows the positive impact.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I do think the private equity sometimes does get a bad rap, but as an owner, you're constantly thinking about whether to add a position or not, and because it's typically going to come straight out of your pocket when you add additional layers into your management team, right? And so we were really slow to do that. So I think bringing on private equities has opened up a lot more opportunities for people to grow and develop in our structure, in our organization. I think the member experience is improving, because when we acquire, we have capital that we can use to refresh the studios, bring the studios up to speed with new equipment if needed. So you're seeing reinvestment back into the studios. Typically the benefits get better, which they did. Our benefits, our health care, our 401k plan, all got slightly better, or even more better, I would say. So those are some really positive things. They professionalize the organization. So with that comes more structure, and typically people like structure. They like to know exactly what their job function is, how they can be successful, and we've better outline that for each level and each team member. So I think it's just, they've made us better and given us a lot more structure.
Yeah, it's cool to hear how it can really, make a difference and improve the quality of an organization. Kind of in wrapping up here, with so much talk today about artificial intelligence, technology, right? There's a lot of areas of the economy that people are worried about. However, I always am fascinated to think through how it could potentially impact brick and mortar businesses. We know for a fact AI isn't going to be able to replace one of your instructors. So do you see though any technological transformation that could be possible in the realm of fitness, or is it really just an area that maybe can't be disrupted?
No, I think you're seeing more and more owners testing AI through customer service, through front desk, but I do think we're seeing where AI works, but also the human touch also works, and where it's needed still. Because for us, it's very important that we understand who our members are, what their goals are. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they're intimidated by reform. And it's hard to get that out of a texting platform or AI platform without that human connection. So I think there's a balance for us. I think, where it makes sense, you'll see more of it. But at the same time, for us, the community aspect of what we're doing in the four-wall studio is different and unique that, like you said, AI, can't really replicate.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always, depending on what you're doing in life and in work, it's potentially a pretty scary time. With
it is, yeah. But somebody sent me an article this morning about how things have changed so much in the last 3 months with AI, and it's like, whoa, it's just, it is scary.
Yeah. Well, so my closing question that I always like to ask is, what person played a big success, what person played a part in your life that they really deserve some credit for, but they might not get it?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. If you think about entrepreneurship and taking a risk, I think my wife is probably the person that deserves the most credit, because we left a pretty secure position in 2016 to kind of burn the ships, if you will, and go up and try something new. And I think anybody that's looking at doing franchising or taking a leap of faith, you should probably have your wife on board. Make sure you're, but she's been the true encouragement, but also a sounding board and strategic partner. And she never, she's just not, she's in the background. So huge help. And as we went through a lot of ups and downs through COVID, through partnership change, through trying to get a deal done. It can be very stressful time. So having her on board was huge, definitely.
Awesome, man. Well, is there anywhere where people can follow either you or your specific portfolio of Club Pilates if they're interested in just watching your journey from this point on? Yeah,
I think the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. You can just find me there, or Align Fitness. We're still building out our LinkedIn profile for Align Fitness, but that's the best place to reach out. And feel free to reach out at any point. I'm all about helping other people have success. So.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation, Jon. I really appreciate you coming on. And maybe we'll do a part 2 after you and Eagle Merchant have another successful, transaction for your business.
Yeah, that would be great. Cool. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Yeah, appreciate what you're doing for our franchise world.
Yeah, thank you. Hey guys, I'm here just to give a few quick thoughts on the episode, and going forward, I'm going to break down my thoughts on each interview. So when it comes to the episode with Jon, I think for one, I really enjoyed the conversation. He's a super humble guy. He almost, I feel like his mannerism and tone kind of downplays his success, but he's really had the dream scenario as a franchisee. And that's going from one location, bootstrapping to many, doing well along the way, and then getting that private equity buyout. And now, right, too, he's still a minority owner. And you heard him say they're probably going to try to sell it in 3 to 5 years. So he gets another bite at the apple to earn even more income. And that's really what you hope for if you're getting into the franchise game. So the first thing, though, that really, really sticks out to me about why he was successful is brand selection. I don't think he would have any problem with me saying that he got a bit lucky in choosing Club Pilates. I mean, he did verbatim say that he never could have predicted the success that the brand has had nationally. And when you really hear the way he talked about the early days, I mean, that is what product market fit generally looks like, right? You have tons of customers coming in. I mean, he was cash flow positive within 2 months at most of those early stores. And it makes sense when you think about it. And I totally can respect that it's much easier to see this in hindsight, but they actually were doing something innovative in the market, right? I think Jon said that they had, the typical Pilates class was kind of like hard to do, hard to get into. It was one trainer for 3 or 4 students, and that's it. Whereas Club Pilates was, 12 reformer pieces of equipment, so 12 class members per one trainer. So not only is it more accessible, it's more fun, it's more community minded, but that economic model is way better, right? One instructor for 12 class members is much better than one for 3 or 4. So you can scale that up, and clearly Jon has. But yeah, even further along those lines is the focus of the brand, right? I mean, I think he said it was 7 years in was the first time they even added a new type of class. And again, that's what you want in any business, I think, but especially at the early stage. You need the company to be dialed in on it, one killer product or service, right? Regardless of the industry you're in, I always think the North Star is you want to be like Raising Cane's. These guys only sell chicken fingers. Their average revenue per store is number 2 in all of the fast food world, right? It's one core menu item that they've built that business around. And so Club Pilates, similarly, only has one type of workout up until they introduced the second one a few years ago. So they had that killer focus, and also equally importantly, they had the demand there to back it up, where it was something that had national appeal and where franchisees could build very profitable four-wall models around. So you need the market size to be there, but assuming you have that, I mean, you just want a concept that's dialed in and that their kind of leading offering, their leading service is what they can be the best at in the whole country. So amazing story on the brand there, really. Last thing I'll just touch on is, relatively speaking, and we didn't get super into the weeds of this, and he didn't really frankly mention it to the end of the episode when I asked my closing question, but you heard him say thank God his wife was there were many ups and downs, and but zooming out, I mean, again, Jon had one of the best emerging franchises you could ever have. Cash flow positivity in a few months. I'm sure there's a lot of franchisees listening to this right now, just they would kill for that kind of economics and have never experienced that. I mean, I know successful franchise owners who have had stores in different concepts that took multiple years to turn cash flow positive. So it is not always, quote unquote, that easy. Now, I obviously know it's still an absolute grind, and fast growth comes with a whole nother set of things you have to contend with. But the point here is just right. If you're considering getting into franchises, it's going to be a roller coaster, right? I mean, Jon dominated with his concept from day one, got the private equity exit, and even he is saying there was still a ton of ups and downs. So expect it to be a roller coaster. And then, of course, right, if you already own franchises and you're thinking, man, is this normal, my day-to-day? And, is it supposed to be this crazy? Well, to some extent, yeah, it is. So, try to enjoy the ride as best you can. Stay close with your friends and family and, just keep riding it out. So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode, and we'll be back soon with another one.